What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the vlog, and welcome to the 1-year anniversary since we began construction on the 60 by 80 pole building that you guys have grown familiar with over the last year on my channel. It's crazy to think that it's been a year since we were out here standing and looking at trusses that were on the ground for some 3 weeks span of time before we actually started the erection of the walls. I just used erection in such an informal context, but it is appropriate when you're talking to actually putting walls up and down. So in today's video, guys, we're gonna talk about the 3 things that I would have done differently, being hindsight is 2020. 2020 being you always get the clearest perspective on things once you've done them. You've gained the experience, you've learned throughout the process, you've realized what to do, what definitely not to do, and things that you would do differently along the way. Now, before we get into those 3 things, I kind of want to preface those 3 things with the fact that I actually did a really good job, because leading into the preparation of what I was going to talk about in this video, I had a really hard time coming up with a list. Although the things that I'm going to mention are rather important, and if you're looking at building a building for yourself, or you'd like to have a dream garage like mine right here behind me, I encourage that you watch the video, and if you guys want to go back and check out some of the previous videos associated with the build, you can go check them out here. That's a full playlist up in that area that goes through a lot of the trials and tribulations of building a building like this, basically by yourself. Make sure you find some good friends though, because they are instrumental in making sure that everything is square and 90 degrees. So if I had to grade my overall performance in planning what is a very detailed project, basically by myself, while running a business and being a father and being a husband and being a homeowner and all these other amazing things in life, I would score myself 95%. Although I did kind of somewhat live by the methodology of C's get degrees. That was me in high school. I leave 5% on the table because there's certainly room for improvement, but being you have to conceptualize an entire project like this and everything that goes into this and all the people that have to contribute to something like this and all the materials that are involved to do something like this and all the funds it takes to actually purchase something like this, I'm really freaking proud of myself. So, that being said, first thing on the list is the footprint. This building is 80 foot long, 16 foot high walls, 28 foot in total to the peak of the roof, and 60 foot deep, which is incredible. I would not change that. But what would I change? I would change the length. It's 80 foot long, which I thought was plenty, because in total, this building is 4,800 square foot, which conceptually is like, whoa, dude, it's literally almost double the size of my house. But this little area right here, although it's very nice for a yard, my family and I very much enjoy it, so do the dogs. I kind of wish that I bumped it out 20 foot minimum, if not 40 foot additionally, to really just maximize its footprint. And it's mostly because, yes, although I've kind of somewhat used a lot of the space in the building, it's actually because I really just wish I had one more garage door right there where the double French door is, and then push the French door off a little bit closer. Not only would it actually shorten the distance I had to walk to the garage, which isn't at all the reason, it just, I guess, would be an added benefit, it would give me another use bay. And the bays as follows. Currently, that bay is kind of my personal bay. The Audi RS6 parks in there and the Denali parks in there. 60 foot deep is very nice because you can have 2 vehicles front to back, full size, and still have plenty of room for activities around the front, around the back, and around the total rear when moving other things around, because you don't want to stockpile and then be like, crap, I gotta take everything out just to move one thing to put it all back in again. 60 foot deep is my recommendation always, but if you're considering a depth, don't go anything smaller than 40 if your grounds or your specific area allows you to do that. Believe me, you will not regret it. You're welcome in advance. Back to what I was saying, this center bay right there is where the OBS is right now, and hopefully we'll be moving soon. We've got some updates for you guys coming later this week, or next week. I guess, yeah, next week it would be. And then the following bay is kind of somewhat storage, if you will. And then we have the means to put more stuff in front of it if need be, but well, actually I have another truck right now, but it's a secret. If I had one more bay right here and then put the recreation quarters 40 more foot that way, it would give me an entire door plus a little bit more, or maybe even 30 foot on, so it would be 110 foot by 60 foot, or even 100 foot by 60 foot. I'd have the ability to have a whole nother bay, which would be awesome. And that would end up putting me at 6,600 square foot, so it would net me almost another 1,800 square foot, which is the equivalent size of my old whole building, actually. The 40 by 40 one, that was our second shop. Number 2 is, well, I'm standing at it right now, the floor. 50% of the time I absolutely love this epoxy floor, and while 50% of the time, I actually don't care for it at all. All right, so hear me out, guys. The epoxy floor is a big decision that I had to make because of 2 primary reasons. Reason number 1 is the cost. It's not at all cheap. Epoxy floors can range from anywhere between $5 to almost $8 a square foot. I don't need to, for all intents and purposes of this conversation, to disclose what I paid, but at least that will give you guys a little bit of a range. Number 2 was presentation. I really wanted this building to be something extremely unique. Being that I'm connected with you guys on the internet all the time, and I spend a lot of my time in here, I wanted it to be something that I saw online, that I dreamt about as a kid, something that I thought about at night before I went to sleep. First thing that hit my mind in the morning. When I saw epoxy floors online, man, it just looked so cool, and I kind of needed to have it. Before I pulled the trigger on the purchase though, I did reach out to a few people that not only had it, but that had experience with it in the past, and they gave me very honest feedback, and now I can actually attest to that myself. Not that I thought that I would be exempt to the rule, but some of those things started happening. There's this misconception in the market that there's a degree of toughness or durability associated with epoxy, and I'm just gonna sit here and tell you guys that there really isn't. If you're using your garage for a bay like Dream Diesel Giveaway 27's in right now, where you're pulling in and you're pulling out and you're doing miscellaneous maintenance work that doesn't involve too much movement along the floor with, say, a jack or jack stands or other things that are heavy on metal wheels, then you're good. You pull in, you pull out, you'll see some micro scratching over time. But if you're using it for things like this bay is, where you have a lift and you have tools that are flying and bolts that are flying and drive shafts that are falling off because you weren't paying attention, or radius arms that weren't fully bolted in and fell off, and or other casualties, then it doesn't really hold up that well. You might notice in the background of my videos, sometimes you'll see these random little green tapes on the ground. Well, the Easter egg is, and I'll never probably mention this in any of my vlogs again, so those of you that know, those are actually big chips that have happened. That one right there, we were actually carrying a leaf spring back from the beat 'em up table, which is right over there with the vise on it. And yeah, it slid out of our arms and it took a massive chunk of epoxy concrete combination with it. You also tend to run into scenarios like this, where I had my skid loader in here. There was a tiny little pebble under the track of the skid loader, and that happened. So now every time I'm in here with my skid loader, I feel like I'm Austin Powers trying to find his way out of that sticky situation between 2 walls like this. So that's 50% of the reason why I don't like my floor. Let's talk about the glass half full approach. And 50% of the reason why I like it, it's because A, it's unique. It presents super well. And when you guys are standing all the way back there and you're looking at me out here, tell me it doesn't look awesome with the galvanized walls and the black ceiling and all that marble style texture underneath. I also love it because it cleans up extremely easily. I went out and bought a floor scrubber, and that thing is a lifesaver. We can make this building look as good as new anytime we want to, because if we spill something, it cleans up super easily and it doesn't stain. Like right here, for instance, there's a gazillion quarts of trans fluid that was sitting on the floor for 3 days because I didn't put any absorbent on top of it. Now it's there. I will brush it up into a dustpan, I'll throw it out, and it's good as new. You'd never be able to tell that there was a bunch of oil under this truck just earlier this morning. I cleaned it up and there's absolutely no staining, whereas if it was concrete, which is a porous substance, it would actually absorb that oil, and then you'd have all these blotches and puddles literally all over your entire floor. So number 1, most expensive, I would have changed the size of the building. Number 2 is I don't know what I would have done with the floor because I'm 50-50, I'm cut down the middle. I actually think I like the floor more, so 51%, 50%. So we're gonna call that a net neutral. But then the third thing, which has the least financial impact, is I would have added 2 more man doors. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. That's 25 steps each time that I have to go from the recreation space to over here to grab something. If I realize that I left something outside, I face one of 2 things. That's opening and closing the garage door, or going out to the recreation space through the double French door and out around, which is another 25 steps to get exactly where I am on the outside. Plus the 25 steps that go back, so let's times that all of a sudden. So now we're at 75 steps. Times that by my forgetfulness, which is at an all-time high. I'm gonna say that happens to me at least 5 times a day. That's 375 steps. That means that in 7 days walking that amount of steps, I've walked a mile in forgetfulness. And that could all probably be solved by one simple thing, and that would be a man door right here. If I could have made some adjustments to the spans of our doors, I would have taken a few inches from the separation of there and there. So what I would have done is put a man door right there because it would have solved all of those problems, but at least I'm getting my steps in, right? I mean, you gotta be an optimist in life. I would have also put a garage door right back here, kind of like I did right over here, because then I can just get in and out of that side or corridor of the building without having to open and close the garage door and avoid the lasers in the process. So that about wraps up the overview of what I would have done differently if I had known what I know today a year, and I'm gonna call it 6 months ago because the planning process started way before actually drilling the footer holes that this whole thing stands on. So that begs the question, do you have a garage or are you looking to build a garage? So answer that for me in the comments, and if you have a garage, what would you have done differently? And if you want to build a garage, what do you want to do? Good luck in your pursuit. You guys gotta stay at it, stay after it, and make it happen, because take me for an example. Never thought that I'd be standing underneath a beautiful building ceiling like this, but here I am, and I gotta say so much of it is thanks to you guys. I'm super grateful for your support. Subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't already. Hit the thumbs up button if this was helpful. Grab some entries for that 700 horsepower DURTYMAX that comes with 30 grand cash, and I'll see y'all in the next upload.